Don, we are live on
Are we?
YouTube. How you doing?
Good. You have, for people that aren't sure of the setup here, for me to see the screen, you're the master of the screen. So I have to kind of do this. So I trust you when you say we're starting.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Some big drama in my world right now. The National Football League just announced the tickets for the potential neutral site game a week from Sunday, if it happens. Tomorrow morning, season ticket holders will be provided a unique passcode tied to their season ticket account, exclusive presale opportunity. So I have a feeling, what do you think, 45-45-10, the split between the Bills, the Chiefs, and the NFL?
That sounds right. I think, yeah, that sounds right. I always heard the league gets 10%, so what else would there be?
Maybe Atlanta gets, maybe the Falcons get 5%.
I want to say there are certain advertisers that it might be 40-40-10-10.
Okay.
With 10% for like league sponsors getting them.
Sure.
Yeah, something like that.
Well, yeah. So I'm in a thread right now where we're trying to figure out how we're going to try to maximize our opportunities to get tickets. Curious to see what the price range is.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the NFL and I thought the Bills did a really nice job in that Detroit game. The tickets were more than fair. More than fairly priced. Right. We got premium seats. I would call them premium seats for $30 each. You could have gotten in the building for as little as $15, which I think is really fair. I think these tickets are going to be a lot more.
Yeah.
I'm thinking maybe to walk in the door is probably about $200. That would be my guess.
I'm going to say $250 because I think the divisional playoff games are $200.
Right. I mean, now that's a home game.
Right.
In one city. Like the demand though, I think is going to be incredible. I know most of the hotels in downtown Atlanta are gone, and I think that
Atlanta's a hotbed for Bills fans too.
Sure, I bet you it's 75-25 Bills fans.
Yeah, shout out to Nick Renzi here as a Bills fan.
That would be my guess. Kavika has popped in here, and
Kavika Mitchell. Here we go.
Yes. Kavika, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Hey.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Kavika, thanks for joining. It's good to see you. It's been a long time. You look good.
Yeah, it's been a while. Good to see you guys.
Where are you calling? Where are you joining us from?
I'm in Orlando, Florida.
It looks like it's sunny there. We're jealous.
I saw the 407 area code come up, and I'm like, and I have a friend in South Florida. He was like, "Oh, it's so cold down here. It hit like 40s a little bit for a day or two or something like that."
It's freezing down there, man. It's like 50 degrees.
Yeah, there we go. Touche.
Thanks a lot. So Kavika, I don't know if you know, but last week, I grew up here in Buffalo, and I worked for the Bills for a number of years in the late 90s. And I basically just wrote an open letter to the Bills asking them to win the Super Bowl for, a lot of people in my life and a lot of people around the area and for the fan base, et cetera. And my one buddy, Eric, his dad has been a season ticket holder for over 40 years, and he has your jersey, and he still wears your jersey at least once a year. He has like a lucky combination of old school guys. And so I mentioned you because, he's kind of known for wearing, the Kavika Mitchell jersey. So when Don told me, that he reached out and you could come on, I did tell my buddy's dad, and he's really excited to watch. He's probably watching us live right now. Do you have like a connection, with the Bills fan base? I mean, I know, you played in a number of different cities, but can you maybe just talk about how special it is, to be a former member of the Bills, and maybe how it might have been different than the other places you played?
Oh man. Yeah, I think that's the closest fan base. I think New York was a really good experience, in Kansas City, everywhere I was a really good experience. But Buffalo, I got really close with Pat Coletta at the time. He was my neighbor. And I think being around him a lot and hanging out with a lot of people that he knew, and kind of just being in the city of Buffalo. And I think it definitely was a great connection. My family really enjoyed being there. And more than anything, I really wanted to win for the city. Buffalo wanted me, during free agency. They were very active after getting me, and it was great to be wanted, and I felt that way since the time I stepped into the city, and So yeah, I definitely have a connection still with the Bills.
That's funny you mentioned Pat Coletta. My wife works with Pat's mom at a school. I don't know if you ever met Sandy Coletta. She's a force of nature now. She'll
Oh,
tell
yeah.
you she'll tell you how it is. I go to Pat's golf tournament every year down at Briarwood, and Sandy Coletta will tell you how it is, good and bad. So when you were pursued by the Bills, like, did you have any hesitation coming here? Because I know obviously it was during the drought and some down years, and you're coming off winning the Super Bowl. Like, was there any hesitation coming to Buffalo?
Before you answered that too, I was in the front office as part of the football administration. I was part of the free agency, Kavika, and to say that you felt wanted, you were wanted. You were the top free agent on the board that we wanted. We Takeo Spikes was dealing with an Achilles that he had pulled, so his future was not looking real good. And you had just come off, of course, being a very key player with the Giants in one of the most improbable playoff wins in the Giants beating the Patriots, who were undefeated that year. Yeah. And you made big plays in that game. You made big plays too when you were with the Giants, and you came in the regular season earlier that year to play here. We jumped up on the Giants, I think 14-0, and you guys came roaring back, and you were making plays all over the field. So I'm sure the team saw enough on film to know they wanted you, but you kind of iced it with those two things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, complete disclosure. Yeah, it was a pause for a second, mainly because I was trying to find my way back to the Giants. That was something at the time that I really wanted to do. I had a tough experience in the year prior going through free agency. I didn't really get a lot of interest. That's why I signed a one-year deal. I was kind of surprised by that whole situation. So it was a mixture of feelings when I started free agency the second time, and that was really the only hesitation. The second hesitation was when I was flying into Buffalo, and I looked out of the window, and I saw these big white fields, and I was like, man, what is that? Well, I was like, what is that big? I didn't realize Buffalo has so many fields like that. They're like, no, that's Lake Erie. And I was like, oh, oh man, wow. They're like, yeah, it freezes over. And I was like, oh man.
That was early March too.
Yeah, that was early March. So that was kind of the second hesitation. But no, I came in with Marcus Stroud. Me and Marcus played together at Georgia for my freshman year, and we had a history. And again, what really attracted me was I felt like I could make a difference in Buffalo. That was my goal was to try to win some games for the Bills and for the city. Again, that was my main motivation. And the fact that they wanted me there, again, going back to that, made a big difference. And it was something that, without those other two things, really, the second one obviously is a joke, but the whole Giants situation, it didn't work out, and again, Buffalo wanted me, and that seemed like the best choice.
So talk to us maybe about when you're going to pursue somebody like you, and you've just won a Super Bowl. Like, when you come into a new team and you've won a Super Bowl, were you the only guy on the team at that point who had won one?
I think so.
That would be my recollection.
Like, what is that?
Like, the only one. Yeah.
What do you do with that information? It's not like you're going to walk around with your ring on every day, but like, do the guys look at you differently? Like, do you carry yourself differently? Like, how do you present that? We always hear as fans that, this guy's got Super Bowl experience. They're bringing him in for his Super Bowl experience. How exactly do you translate that into something that you can, pass on to your teammates?
That's a great question. I think too, the team was relatively young. So I think there was a little bit of influence as far as that is concerned. And thankfully, with that experience being in New York, I did learn more about leadership through Strahan and some of those guys. So, really, it's just trying to be close, trying to get to know the guys, trying to really build that camaraderie and build that, just that accountability, because for me, that was the biggest difference on a championship team was the accountability. So we really just try to build some of that, or at least I try to bring that experience to the table, and really having fun. Like you said, just trying to make big plays, trying to influence the game, trying to change the be a difference maker in the games and try to lead that way. I think everybody was already working hard and trying their best. So those are probably the best ways that I try to influence.
Yeah. What we like to ask guys too, just to dial it back a few years, you were a second-round pick out of the University of South Florida. You said you went to Georgia. I forgot that you played with Marcus Stroud. He was a beast on the field, but like a big old teddy bear off the field. I'm sure you have some good stories about him. But what are your memories of being drafted? Like even specifically, like draft day, were you drafted where you anticipated to go, and what are your recollections of that?
No, I met with the Chiefs on Tuesday night. It was Tuesday night before. The funny story is my wife was being induced on Wednesday morning, and so our son was born Wednesday. I met with the Chiefs the night prior, and they said they were interested in taking me in the second round. I was like, okay, I didn't know to believe it or not believe it. Prior to that, I think I was projected to like 5th to 7th round to free agent. Just coming from a smaller school, but the combine, I had a really good combine. I think that attracted people's attention. So going into it, we brought our son home Friday, took him to the doctor Saturday morning. My wife was exhausted Saturday. I was exhausted, and I went out to get something to eat. I was in a Wendy's drive-thru, and and I got the call, and I didn't know who the people. I knew Dick Vermeil. I knew that name, and I was, I was kind of out of it. And then he put me on the phone with Greg Robinson, the D coordinator at the time. I didn't know who Greg was, and then Carl Peterson, the GM at the time. I didn't know who Carl. So it was kind of a funny situation. My sister was in the car with me, and she was like, "What just happened?" And I said, "Well, the Chiefs said they're going to draft me." And that was it. And so it was kind of anticlimactic, but like I said, I had my son, and that was he got to be on TV that day, and then I think 2 weeks later I was living in Kansas. So
wow, you talk about maybe the moment being anticlimactic, but when you take a big picture view of your draft status, like you said, you thought you might be drafted as late as the 5th or 7th round, or even my gosh, to go in the 2nd round is way over. Well, you say it over achieving.
Were you called a reach?
I don't think so. I thought Green Bay might have. I thought I had a chance maybe to go in Green Bay the first round, because they started in that draft. They started to make a run for linebackers: E.J. Henderson, Nick Barnett, and. So I thought there might be a chance because I met with Green Bay. So I thought it was possible, but I'm one of those come behind type people. I like to doubt the situation and be ready to overcome some things. So I was anticipating some obstacles, and so I don't know if I was considered a reach. It was a surprise to me.
Yeah, you had an amazing career, 8 years. Overall, in terms of your view of the NFL, obviously here, Kavika, the Bills have gone through, famously, huge storm, game move, blizzard, the most significant incident that happened, obviously, with Damar Hamlin, and perhaps the most severe injury in NFL history. And the Bills fans here, they know this is a very, very good team, a team that they expect to be, in the Super Bowl more so than any other year. But there's also kind of a feeling of, we're a team of destiny. But then, it's the first game back after the first game played after Damar Hamlin, good news that he's going to be okay. The opening kickoff goes for a touchdown. It just feels like, okay, oh my gosh, this is this team of destiny thing. But then, we play a depleted Dolphins team at home that had lost like 5 out of 6 games, limped into the playoffs after beating the Jets without scoring a touchdown. And they gave the team the scare of their life. And everyone's like, oh my gosh. So how do you guard against you with the Giants again? You played the Patriots. They were undefeated. They probably felt like we are a team of destiny. How the NFL is just such you still have to prove it on Sunday kind of deal. How do you assess all of that?
That's why the NFL is so great. I think it's the playoffs, and we all know it doesn't really matter what the situation is. You know, if you make it to the playoffs, excuse me, you have a chance. You know, and whoever you're playing against, you know, should be ready for a competition. And even if your team isn't good during the regular season, and I tell people this all the time, you know, if a team is struggling with a record and stuff like that, like those teams are the hardest teams to beat. You know, you always have to be prepared. You know, those guys are going to come out. They're going to play hard. Will they play hard all 4 quarters? You know, I don't know, depending on the culture. But a lot of times, you know, those are the teams you have to be careful of. But when you get to the playoffs, we were a wild card team with the Giants, and you know, I don't know how many people really believe that we were going to make it, but momentum goes a long way. You know, I don't think the Dolphins had a lot of momentum, but they have weapons. You know, and I thought the quarterback Thompson, I think that's his name. I thought he played really well. I thought he executed the game plan, and you know, I don't think it's anything to say against the Bills. I think they did struggle a little bit, but I think it's the playoffs. I think that's just how it goes.
It drives me nuts when people tell me after the game, oh, you know, like the players got to be disappointed or angry, or, you know, I can't believe we only won by 3. And I'm thinking you guys are crazy. Like it's really hard to win in the NFL. It's really hard. These guys, the other guys are getting paid too. Like they had a really talented roster. You know, in some ways it might almost be better. Could you maybe talk to me about after a game like that, if you're the Bills, you win, but you're sloppy. They're sloppy. They were a little. Is that in some ways better than if they would have walked in there and won 40-0?
No. You want to win. I mean, you want to win a game. I mean, to your point about, you know, you only won by 3. You know, I'm sure Buffalo fans can relate to losing by 3. You know, like how bad that feels. So. Yeah. It doesn't matter how you get the job done, 40-0 or by 3 points. You know, the point is to win games, and I think Bill Belichick has taught us that. I think the Giants have taught us that this year, and it's just like I said, that's what matters. You know.
Yeah, we're not going to put you on the spot because it's interesting that the 3 teams you played for, primarily the Chiefs, the Giants, and the Bills, are all in the playoffs. And obviously you're on a program that's we're focusing on the Bills, but of the 3 teams, which one do you feel maybe at least on paper or given what other intangibles you might see is the Chiefs? You know, with the bye is a big deal, but what are your views of the pathways for the 3 teams? Summaries of.
I thought you said you weren't going to put me on the spot.
I'm not making you predict anything or even who you're rooting for. I just wonder, how do you see what are pros and cons of where they are all kind of positioned right now?
Yeah, I think, man, I think, you know, obviously the Giants are such a big surprise to me. You know, I think they've gotten better all year long, and I think that's the main thing to look at when you look at that team. If they can keep going, I don't know. They don't do it pretty. You know, they just win by 3 sometimes, and they just get it done. So it'll be interesting to see how that turns out in Philly. I think Buffalo wins this week. I think they meet up with Kansas City again. I think that's going to be the matchup that it has been in the past. You know, I think it's going to be a tough game. I think I couldn't even tell you on that one. Both teams are really good. I think Buffalo's defense, that's a hard one because you got Mahomes and Allen who could both run and they can do things with their legs. And I think besides the strength of their arms, you know, I think that's what makes them unique is their big play ability. So I don't really know once it gets to that game.
It'd be fun. Answer. That's a fun scenario if it's in a neutral site down in Atlanta. That'd be quite a scene. I was just Googling the 2007 Giants playoff run. Was that the really, really cold game in Green Bay? You won in the NFC Championship game?
Yeah, some people. I think it was like -24 or something. I don't really remember.
Tom Coughlin's face was all red, right? Like it was like it was unbearable. And you guys went in there, and was that Brett Favre's last game in Green Bay? Went in there and beat him?
Yeah, was it? I think so because Corey Webster got it was the last interception, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, that was an unbelievable run you guys had. Do you feel it like okay? So you go in and you beat Tampa on the road, and then you beat Tampa, Dallas, Green Bay, and then the Patriots.
Yeah.
What an unbelievable 4-game run! Wow, like when do you feel it? Like when do you know? Like when do you know? Hey man, this is really special. Is it after the first one, or does it come after a specific game, a specific play? Like when do you know? Like we really have a shot here.
We felt pretty confident. It's going to sound crazy. Midway through the season, really, we knew we had to beat Buffalo. Obviously, we had to beat Buffalo to get into the playoffs.
Right.
And that was kind of just how our season went. We were losing in that game. We had to come back and win against Buffalo, and that's just kind of how things went. But we were always a close team. We believed in our ability. Who was going to show up? Sometimes we weren't quite sure, but I think we won 11 straight on the road, going.
Wow.
As by the time we finished in the Super Bowl, so we felt confident in ourselves. We couldn't win at home for some reason. But during the playoffs, I think we just kind of, I don't know. That's just how we felt. We're a confident team,
Yeah.
So I would like to say that we believed in ourselves midway towards the end of the season, regardless of how hard the road was.
Yeah, we have a fun exercise to do with you. A little question I haven't told you about in my text messaging, but I think you'll like it. Before you do, we had one of your teammates on last week, George Wilson. You talk about your path to the NFL. Being a second-round pick. He was in Detroit, kind of in the wilderness. Dick Duran came over. He brought him over. He was safety. He was told the year before you came to the Bills that he either needed to try to switch to go to the other side of the field, or he was likely not going to be on the roster. He did. He became a safety, and he was instantly successful. How do you, knowing George and kind of his makeup, his mindset, what were your impressions of your former teammate and his NFL journey?
Oh man, George was a leader. George was an extremely hard worker, and he was a very loyal, just a quality person. He's exactly what you get. What you see is what you get. And he was good. He was really good about bringing the guys together. He spent a lot of time with everybody, really. He did a lot with the community. He continues to do a lot with the community. And he just refused to be outworked. I remember him and Torrence would all the DBs were always doing something extra. And a large part of that was his involvement.
Yeah. No, that's great.
So before we let you go here, Kavika, we play something called the 2-minute warning, where we're going to ask you 10 questions in 2 minutes or around there, and see some kind of off the wall questions. So I'll start it here. If the Bills, the Chiefs, and the Giants are all on TV, and you only have one TV, which
now
game?
You're on the spot.
Which game you watching?
Oh,
that's a hypothetical in the playoffs, but
yeah. It's definitely between the Bills and Chiefs. I hate to say, but probably Bills. Probably Bills.
There you go. Good answer.
Most interesting place that you're watching any of those three teams or any NFL game these days?
Man, I watch the same place, the corner of my couch.
There you go.
There you go. So if three people that you could have dinner with who are dead or alive.
Three people. I think Muhammad Ali is like the regular one. Alicia Keys,
there you go.
My wife, she's okay with that one. Let's see, Walter Payton.
Oh wow, yeah, Walter. We've had him come up before, actually. So you're entering an arena, and you're a big deal. What's the song that they play as you're coming in with a dry ice entrance?
What is it? In the Air Tonight? That's the
Collins. Right. There you go. Best concert you've ever been to?
Rage Against the Machine.
Oh, well, my wife loves them.
All right. Mm-hmm. When you were in Buffalo, can you recall what your favorite restaurant was and what dish it was? Not Wendy's. Don't say Wendy's now.
No, Daniel's. I think it's just
Danny's.
No, Daniels.
No, Daniels.
Who else said that? Yeah.
Somebody else said that.
Yeah, somebody else.
I think just their filet. I think they're like the little French influence.
Your favorite cartoon as a kid?
Tom and Jerry.
All right. It's a popular food, but you hate it.
Chicken wings. I know that's a.
Ooh,
Oh, wow. We can edit this, but we're not going to. I like it. That's hard.
that was a hot take right there. Wow. All right, give me who's the most annoying fan base in the NFL?
Dallas. The
There he
Cowboys.
is.
Yeah.
That's the default answer.
Can you drive a stick shift?
Yes.
Excellent.
And the last one here, can you sing us 5 seconds of the USF fight song?
No.
Do they have a fight
No.
song?
They do.
Okay.
And so we go. My son plays for South Florida now, and we go down to the games a lot. And I'm the most stale fan that you'll see. I just watch football, all the little cheering, and I don't know.
Do you get more nervous watching your son than you did when you played?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
What position does he play?
He's the safety.
Okay.
That's awesome. Yeah, good for you, man. I'm happy for
Yes.
you. I know, not to embarrass you in a humble way, you're a humble guy, low key. I know that you donated money before to towards some former NFL players who people have a hard time understanding that their life isn't just made for them after their NFL career. We've had Jerry McKelly here, the Bills alumni director of the team, and I just think that's really cool. And obviously, you're doing well for yourself, but it doesn't surprise me that you're looking out for your brethren out there that are still, might have difficult paths and everything. But yeah, that's just had to get that in.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
we really appreciate you joining us. We'll maybe check back in with you before the Super Bowl if the Bills make it. Maybe you can pop back on and tell us a couple good Super Bowl stories from your time there. And I guess go Bills, right?
Yeah, go Bills.
All right. Thanks.
thank you so much.
All right, guys.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
We'll talk to you.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, that was great.
That
was great. Yeah, you can tell he's real. Like,
he's the same as when he was there. He was just, man, I don't like to throw this word around too loosely, but just cool.
Yeah. He seems like a really cool dude. Cool dude in Florida.
I loved your question about if he gets more nervous watching his son.
Yeah, God, that's so tough.
Right?
I'm watching Jackson play flag football, and I'm leaning and gritting my teeth, and I've really tried to stay out of anything to do with like the team or the coaching.
It's harder
or the coaching decisions, which one of them this year drove me nuts because the coach didn't remember it was 4th down and thought it was still 3rd down.
Oh,
and
fundamental mistake.
And I'm on the sideline and I'm just gritting my teeth and grinding it away.
It only gets better and it only gets harder. Having 2 daughters that played sports in high school through college, it's more rewarding, but again, investment is a word here. You're so into it, and it's hard to
absolutely.
But if anyone could do it, I'm not surprised.
DF Forever, thank you so much. He sent us. I didn't see your question for Kavika, unfortunately, in time. But he did say Kavika likes his wings plain or with ranch dressing. That's probably why he hates chicken wings if he eats them with ranch dressing. I mean, that's a brutal answer, especially on a Buffalo podcast. And then Tim Langhouse just wrote in that, Buffalo versus Kansas City neutral site is the corner of Kavika's couch. That's funny. I mean, he played 4 years in 2003 through 2006 in Kansas City.
Yeah.
So, his loyalties are definitely tested because he was here, you said 2 years, and then the 3rd year he got injured and then ended up on the Saints in 2010.
For one game.
I
didn't even mention it, but what's funny? He kind of, the team you would think he would have the most attachment to would be the team he won a Super Bowl with, but he was also stung that they didn't want to bring him
you
back.
win the Super Bowl, you make some plays,
yeah.
and then they say, I'm good. Like, that's tough.
Yeah.
Right? Like you have a camaraderie with the guys and you just won the Super Bowl and you probably went to the parade. You were in the parade and all this, and then, hey, see ya.
Yeah, we're just every year. So this is a great question to put out for those listening. I was going to ask you, on the current Bills roster, is there a player that has a Super Bowl ring? It's Josh, you and I, for people that don't know, you and I communicate between shows.
Yes.
And I kind of hinted I was going to ask you this question. You're like, stop, wait for the show, because you like this authenticity.
Sure.
I think I know one, but I'm not positive. If anyone's listening,
who's your one?
Did Mitch Morse win one with the Chiefs when they won?
Oh,
was he there?
No, I think he was here. Isn't this his 3rd year here?
See,
you might be right.
I don't know.
You might be right. You know what? If somebody online knows, and Vaughn.
Okay. No, duh.
Right,
All right. Yeah.
Thank you, Tim.
All right. Yeah. Out of sight, out of mind,
Right,
unfortunately.
right.
But right.
Yeah, that unfortunately. And you know what?
Yeah.
I was watching that game. Watching the game Sunday. Boy, they miss him. They miss him, and especially this week, if Cincy's left tackle is out, I mean, what a huge advantage. He's going to be out. But like,
he's
I
out.
thought to myself, boy, Vaughn in this game, just to speed Burrow up, just to influence the offensive game plan enough to have to chip him, to have to keep the tight end in. His influence alone in a game where the left tackle is out on the road in Buffalo, like that. That is a huge storyline going forward here. Is that 3/5 of Cincinnati's offensive line is probably out.
It is amazing. And their offensive line was bad before they were good. They invested a lot of money.
15 straight weeks. 15 straight weeks. They did not. They started the same offensive line, and now 3 weeks in a row. So it's a regression to the mean, right? When it comes to like injury luck, and everybody was getting so angry and frustrated earlier in the year about the Bills' injury luck, which was brutal.
Yeah.
Damar Hamlin aside, just football related injuries was just ridiculous. Like week after week after week. Feels like they're pretty healthy right now, the Bills, and it's you never want to say it, but it's kind of nice that it's the other team. Dealing with the
injuries are part of the game. And,
right.
It's interesting how there are runs at certain positions. The Bills, I would say, is kind of the DBs, but then you play players that aren't used to playing as much.
Yes.
And they're
and Kaiir Elam is CB2 from now on for me after Sunday. He stepped up and played well.
Yeah.
The real Bill Meyer certified asked any team would miss Von Miller, but can Rousseau dominate this weekend? It feels like it's his game coming up here. Like I said, that's a tough assignment for any left tackle coming in here. I think the Dolphins had 4 false starts. The crowd, I guess from what I heard, the crowd was really loud.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, I have a couple of things. Like if I was a coach, if I was Coach McDermott, if I was Brandon Beane, what I would encourage people to do is get in your seats early because you want to be there for the first drive of the game. And I've heard multiple quarterbacks say that the easiest drive of the game for the visiting team is the drive right after halftime because 20-30% of the people are not in their seats. I understand you got to go to the bathroom. Yeah, I understand you got to get your roast beef or your chicken wings or whatever. But man, if I'm the Bills in this game coming up, I feel like you need the crowd full throat in their seats for every drive of the game. And I don't know how you ask the crowd to not. You got to go take a piss. You got to take a piss. Fine.
You go to the source. We had Andy Altamar, the GM of Highmark Stadium, GM Delaware North on. It was a well-received episode. It was kind of a business-like episode, but they drill down on when the fans are available. And he talked about how it's better to have the gates open 2 hours for them rather than that. And then you always have that rush at halftime. Maybe you just cut off halftime 5 minutes earlier.
I got to tell you, if I'm Brandon Beane, I write a check to Delaware North for like $1 million and just shut them all down right before halftime.
Yeah, this is what you would have made.
Yep. Sorry. We need, because it's such a competitive advantage. And I've heard that multiple times. Yep. You get once the false start penalty, one guy being able to get off, the ball quicker than the left tackle is a sack fumble around the corner. Like that's what home field advantage is.
Right.
And you see these stadiums and Highmark is not nearly as bad as some of the other ones, but you see these stadiums after halftime and they're half full for half of the third quarter.
They come back and like, what's going on?
Yeah. And I've heard, I think it was, I know Eli Manning said it on the Manning cast that the easiest drive for the opposition is right after halftime. Whether they get the ball first or second, because the crowd is still kind of filing back in, and there's a lull in the game, whatever. What do you think? As we wait here, see if Luke Russert's going to join us. What do you think they do pregame with Damar? I have a feeling he might be there. I'm hearing
things. This is unofficial. I haven't talked to any friends or colleagues I still have at the Bills.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Go ahead. No, finish the
story. It wouldn't surprise me to see him there in some way, shape, or form. It's a little scary. The teams don't like to have injured players on the sideline just for the risk of a runaway tight end and a fullback. Their momentum, it's hard to stop. And you've seen
I got hit in the shin by Thurman Thomas's helmet.
Really?
Yes. Yeah. When he was with the Dolphins.
Yeah.
The game in Miami. He was a Dolphin in 2000.
Oh,
and
we don't talk about that.
The play came well.
We don't talk about
my
that
shin
year.
can talk about it because it hit me with it. The play comes so fast, and if you're not paying attention, it's amazing. Luke, you with us here?
Luke Russert, do we have you here? Looks like we do. Maybe just needing to hit the mic.
Yeah, not sure yet. Luke, you here? Can you hear us?
Get our intern Chuck on it.
It says the mic's there.
Mike's there.
But yeah, as we wait for Luke, parade him around in the bed of Rex Ryan's Bills wrapped F-150. I have a feeling that
Who said that?
Tim Langhouse. I have a feeling that Rex's truck doesn't have the Bills wrap anymore. I mean, he does still root for the Bills. It seems like. I mean, he was clearly moved on ESPN.
Yeah,
from Damar.
I don't think you had to be a Bills fan.
You know what? Let me give you a funny Rex Ryan story. Okay, so early, and my wife Jody, I don't know if she's listening or not. She might not be very happy with me after this. So we're watching The Amazing Race, and we find out that Rex Ryan is going to be, that was the promo that Rex Ryan was going to be a contestant on The Amazing Race, CBS show, fun show. And she and I and the boys sit down to watch the first episode. I'm like, oh, cool. Rex Ryan's coming on. All of a sudden, Jody goes, oh my God, covers her mouth, her mouth, with her hand. And I'm like, what? She's like, her ex-boyfriend was Rex Ryan's partner on The Amazing Race.
Come on.
So he met this guy, Tim, in Buffalo, and they were on the CBS show together. So Jody's,
what are the odds of that?
What are the odds of that? That's right now, I got to tell you, I immediately went from rooting for Rex Ryan to maybe not wanting Rex Ryan because I'm like, oh,
that's human nature.
Every week I'm gonna have to see this guy. I mean, I had never met him, and from what Jody told me, he was a nice guy. It just wasn't.
You'd want to have him galoolied.
Yeah, well, yes. I wasn't heartbroken when week 2 he made a strategic error and they were eliminated. And I'm like, if I would have been on with Rex, things would have been a little bit different. I feel like
that's classic.
Luke, can you hear us? Oh, I'm not sure if your mic is muted or kind of what's going on here, but maybe log out,
hit,
and then log back in. Yeah, maybe he's going to try that again.
Okay.
So yeah, that happened earlier this year, and it was one of those things where I was silently rooting against Rex, and had nothing to do with Rex. So that was kind of a curious, curious episode that we're going to add Luke here again.
Try this, yeah.
Luke, can you hear us?
You might have to hit. Is it allow microphone button?
He can hear you. So his mic is muted. So there we go.
Can you hear me?
There you go, Luke. We got you.
Hey, good morning, guy. Good afternoon. Good morning.
We're thrilled to be joined by the Buffalo's best ambassador, Luke Russert again.
All right.
So Luke, talk us through how you've been feeling the last couple weeks. Obviously, the Damar situation, and then maybe kind of nationally or where you are. What's the vibe from the Bills Mafia?
And before you do, Luke, one of the things you mentioned last time you were on with us was. You said the most annoying fan base in DC or anywhere was the Patriots, and so also add how it felt to end their season in the at the regular season.
Well, we can start off with that. I mean, I think what's fascinating about the Patriots is we saw last night. Brady looks like he's on his way out. Man, the joke that I said, it was like one of those Monsters of Rock cruise ship tours, where Quiet Riot and, Skid Row go play on a cruise somewhere around Aruba for, $25 a ticket or something like that. That's what Tom Brady looks like now.
And you watch the shows, it's like, put your shirt back on, please.
Oh, gosh, yeah. Reliving the nostalgia. And then, Belichick doesn't seem to be doing much without Brady. That being said, I think New England, what's their long-term plan? Obviously, some folks think Mac Jones can be the guy to manage. But if you look at other teams with that sort of effective manager, San Francisco, Brock Purdy, Mac Jones isn't making the types of throws that a Brock Purdy is. So it was very nice to see the Bills and the Patriots season. It was very nice to see Tom Brady looking very, very mortal and very, very human in the span of about a week. Nationally, I think the story of Damar Hamlin really captured the attention of just how incredible the Bills fan base is. Now, I think a lot of folks within the NFL knew that. I think a lot of folks that watch ESPN over time have known that. but the way in which this story cut through, I mean, this was a true national story in the sense that if you watched The View, if you watched cable news, if you watched the Hallmark Channel, you heard about the Damar Hamlin story. And I think that it highlighted what was the best parts of not only Buffalo in terms of the charitable donations, but the coaching staff with bringing him back to life, and then in the medical community, the doctors in Cincinnati, and just the fact that the entire league hit pause for a moment and everybody was supportive of it. I mean, I think that's one of the most extraordinary things is that, there's a few outliers and a few just very terrible people. I'm not going to name names, Skip Bayless, but everybody seemed to say, hey, this was a good thing. It needed to happen. And thank God Damar's okay. And I think that was a really heartwarming thing for sure.
It was. Luke, what was your own personal experience? What were you doing? Where were you watching the game? And how did that play out as you were watching it for yourself? The Damar Hamlin injury.
I think we lost him again.
Oh, did we? Oh, okay.
Yep. Oh, he got booted for a second.
Okay.
If he comes back on, I'm gonna ask him about his win it for as well, and I'm real curious to find that out.
Share the one that we had.
Yeah, I will. I will.
It won't be the only person that mentions the Russert family, but
no, it's kind of amazing. She was the first person who reached out to me, and she was the first, and I will mention to him. So he's not. Tim Langhouse with another comment here. The Bills effectively ended all 3 division opponents' seasons. The Jets were never really into it after the second Bills loss. Then the Bills knocked the Patriots out, and then the Bills knocked Miami out last week.
How about that, man?
That is pretty. That is pretty interesting. I hadn't thought of it that way. The Jets game, kind of put them on the ropes later in the season, and then obviously they directly knocked out New England and Miami. It would be an amazing run here if they could beat New England, then Miami, then Cincinnati, and then Kansas City to get to the Super Bowl. That's like like getting rid of the demon tour.
Yeah.
Right? Like those are all the demons. Those are all the demons. I mean, obviously Cincinnati from this year, but then Kansas City from the last couple of years, and Miami historically, and then New England forever. Like to go on that run to beat those teams to get to the Super Bowl would be quite a thing.
It's true. And as Kavika Mitchell said, all that matters is that you get in, and that you find a way to win some way, somehow. Doesn't matter by what score. But for all the talk during the season about how much better the AFC East was, and it's true, record-wise, all 3 teams were better than they were the previous year. There is some personal satisfaction to be the team to knock them out.
I got to plug the Wi-Fi.
Uh-oh, where's Chuck? Oh, Chuck, we've got technical issues, but fortunately Josh from his coaching staff days knows how to replug things in. And thanks for bearing with us, folks. And Luke looks like he came back on here.
All right, let's see if we can get him back. Oh no, he's back out again.
Okay.
So it's live television, folks.
You're rolling the dice here.
You know what? This is what it's like on an NFL sideline sometimes when it's just chaos. And I've dealt with many coaches who would yell to me to come in and do something as simple as plug the computer in because they didn't know how to do it, or didn't want to do it.
IT
felt like
they asked to. Yeah,
felt like it was beneath them to have to deal with any kind of technical issues. Their time was too important for them to have to deal with any of that. Luke, we got you back here, buddy.
Looks like he's there.
Yeah,
we're there. So close.
But I think it's something.
He sounded so good too. Like
absolutely.
Here,
Luke has muted himself, which I'm not sure why that's happening. But let's talk. Let's talk a little bit more about the game coming up as we wait. If Luke can hear us, he's muted.
It's worth taking a second just to hit unmute.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's on his end.
That's what I mean. Just to let him know that. He can do that.
So Sunday, it's kind of interesting. The NFL schedule for this weekend coming up. How much more excited are you for this?
All I know is the Bills play Sunday at 3. What are the other times?
So Kansas City and Jacksonville is the early game. There we go. Luke, we got you. No, it says you're a guest because they chose to mute themselves. So I'm getting a message on there that he has muted himself for some reason. Not sure why.
I think it's is it the microphone button?
Yeah, I think so.
If he can hear us,
So
click the microphone button might allow you back in.
So Jacksonville and Kansas City play early Saturday, the 4:30 game. Then it's the Giants and the Eagles.
Okay.
So how much more excited will Bills fans be if Jacksonville somehow pulls an upset? Because then you have the scenario like you had last year when Cincinnati beat Tennessee, where you'd host the AFC Championship game. And just the idea of hosting Jacksonville at home for the AFC Championship game.
It's delicious.
It makes you just go like this, right? It's like, oh my God, like to be able to play Jacksonville at home. Luke, you got us? His mic is still muted.
If he can hear,
see, it says mute. That reminds me of a scenario back in '95 when the Bills were playing Pittsburgh.
Yep.
But the day before, Indianapolis had walked into Kansas City and beat the Chiefs.
Yeah. What?
And I remember it was the Bruce Smith flu game. I remember when I started interning at the Bills, we talked about that game and how, Bruce was sick and couldn't play in the flu. I'm like, but man, they would have had the Colts at home to go to the Super Bowl. Like having that Sunday game of the divisional round, if you can host the AFC Championship game, just feels like.
Well, as Bills fans, let's see if Luke's coming. As Bill says, we have that 51-3 game, right?
Yeah.
Against the Raiders, the first time it ever happened. First time the Bills ever hosted the AFC Championship game. What happened? We beat the Raiders 51-3. It's like, yeah, that's the scenario. Now we had the Broncos the next year, and it was, you had to sweat that one out. You needed a Carl Bailey pick six to beat Elway, and then that was the last time. Oh no, 2 years later, the Chiefs
30-13,
and the offensive line, and our boy John Davis and Glenn Parker, and we're blasting holes open for Thurman, and
Luke, you got us. No, unfortunately, for some reason, there's some kind of issue with Luke's mic because I could see him on here, and it keeps. That's interesting because Kavika didn't have a problem. I'm not quite sure
Luke was good. Yeah, he knows his invitation is open. We always love to have Luke.
Yeah, absolutely. I
can't wait to hear more. Hopefully, of what his experience has been. We'll keep an eye on.
I feel like having the AFC Championship game possibility at home now this year, even if Kansas City wins. It totally feels like it still feels okay because you're going to go to neutral sites. You don't have to go back to Arrowhead at least.
Right.
So I think the excitement and the anticipation either way for this game Sunday, because it would be tough if Kansas City wins Saturday. Obviously, you still want to win. Obviously, everything's still on the line. But in the back of your head, you got to go back to Arrowhead again.
Yeah, you think back to last year, the 13 seconds is historically brutal and hard to take about the what if. Oh, we would have had Cincinnati at home. But if it helps a little bit, you did see how Cincinnati then won in Kansas City in advance. So it might not have been such a slam dunk. But this year, Jacksonville at home for the AFC Championship game. But when you have to consider that, they, first of all, came back from 27 down against the Chargers. That was incredible. And then you had Kavika Mitchell just talking about the Giants, who were the 6th seed that year. And who did they go through? They went through the Packers,
Tampa, Dallas.
The Packers' far's last game.
Yeah, so it was Tampa, Dallas, Green Bay, and then the undefeated Patriots. Yeah, that's about the craziest. That's about the craziest 4-game run in playoff history. At Tampa,
say that.
At Tampa, at Dallas, at the Giants.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, at the Packers, at the undefeated Patriots, the greatest team of all time.
Yeah, they were.
So because we're having some trouble here with Luke, I think maybe we can revisit a topic that you and I talked about the other day but did not release, and it was brought about by my mother-in-law's friend Mike McDaniel. Luke, you here?
Can you hear me now?
Wow, we got you, Luke.
Whatever you did there.
There it is. Not quite sure what happened. So we were talking about, Damar and maybe what your experience was that day, and where were you watching? Were you watching with friends? Were you out? Like what?
No, I was watching with friends. But what was amazing about this moment, and it's cliche, right, to think that well, nothing else matters, and that you just want the guy to come through, and that it's more than a game, etc. But in that case, it's absolutely correct. And I think what's so impressive about that game, about that moment, is that everybody seemed to be on the same page, that the game did not matter, that the well-being of this young man took precedence over that. And that was a very special thing to see. And I think it not only did it showcase the best of Buffalo, but also the best of Cincinnati, but also just the best of folks who enjoy watching football. There were no real bad apples with the exception of maybe Skip Bayless that night. And that's a lot. That's saying a lot. And I think that most everybody, 99% came together and said, hey, the well-being of this young man goes forward. We're going to deal with an awkward situation given the winning percentage or neutral sites, et cetera. And everybody's cool with it because that was unprecedented. And thank God he came through. And thank God that his story, his incredible charitable endeavors, but also the medical personnel and the charity of Buffalo is really came forward and been the forefront of it instead of competition and something that's meaningless compared to the game of life. So just a beautiful moment all around.
I was blown away by the crowd in Cincinnati. When both teams went back to the locker room, and it was pretty clear at that point the game probably wasn't going to be continued. And people spend a lot of money, time, effort. They'd probably been drinking all day. It's a Monday night game. Those people were so respectful and quiet, and no booing, no oh my God, I can't believe that they're gonna postpone or cancel the game. That was such an impressive performance.
It was
68,000 people, right? Like it was
It
unbelievable.
was
It blew me away.
I think that's really what the story here is that starting with Dane Jackson running over to his buddy, knowing immediately something is wrong when Damar's teetering and falling over, his childhood friend. And then you see McDermott and Taylor in the Bengals coaching staff and the Bills coaching staff basically saying, we're not going to do this game. Over the head of the NFL and their silly 5-minute warm-up and get back to it. So if you look at just the people closest to the action, from the players to the coaching staff to the refs to the fan base, everybody acted exceptionally well. And it was really nice to see. Eventually, the league came on board and did the right thing. But the people closest to the action, the people who really know everything, the people who care the most, the people who are the most invested, they did the right thing off the bat. And I think if anything resembles the Damar Hamlin story, that's really it, is that the people did the right thing. And it was a beautiful thing to see.
Especially given that it was unprecedented. They couldn't even say, well, remember in 2002 and they stopped the game. Let's do it like that. It had never been done.
No.
Still, there was no hesitation.
Yeah, it had never been done. And honestly, I think the solution they came up with, it's not perfect, but it works, and that's really what matters.
So Luke, last week, my father was born in New Hampshire. My grandfather was Red Sox season ticket holder for almost 30 years. And in 2004, before the Red Sox went to the World Series, a guy on a message board wrote this thing called Win It For, and it turned into a best-selling book on Amazon where people would write in, why they wanted the Red Sox to win the World Series after 86 years. So I did that last week on our show, and I got a lot of great responses and feedback for the people that I want the Bills to win the Super Bowl for. I thought maybe it would be fun to ask you who you might want the Bills to win the Super Bowl for. Obviously yourself included, but maybe other people that your dad, your grandfather, but then maybe some others that are important to you.
Oh, well, I mean, right off the bat, it's my father, my grandfather, my late Uncle Bill. I mean, just the guys who are gone now that watched that team every single weekend, starting at the rock pile in the old AFL days. And just the amount of emotion that signifies that. I mean, I think what's so fascinating is you talk to people that have dealt with grief and they dealt with loss. The Bills really are a bright spot, but they're also that connective tissue, not just to the Buffalo community, but also to loved ones from the past. I mean, I tell folks, I said, when I watch the Buffalo Bills, I feel like my dad's there, my grandfather's there, my uncle's there. You feel that presence. So I think for anybody, that's really the main answer. Then I just go back to my friends who I text with during the games, my cousin Jesse Hughes, my buddy John Wolf, my buddy Adam Reesner. But then I also just think about the community as a whole. I mean, you just think about the power of that moment and what a catharsis it would be. Just years and years and years of loss and being so close and being the butt of so many jokes around the league and around the country. It just all washes away in one moment. And I think that more than anything is what I wanted for, just the ability to say, hey, I'm from Buffalo, and yeah, I'm a world champion.
There you go.
It doesn't get better than that.
Yeah. You would know more than most. When I was telling Don, when you travel, especially like back in the 90s, it was one of two things. It was either the 4 straight Super Bowls or snow, and that was the only. When you say you're from Buffalo, that was the automatic response from somebody else, and nobody
give us credit for chicken wings.
Yeah. No one.
Wow, thanks.
No one. Oh, we lost him again. I'm not.
Oh,
sure, whatever.
Okay.
I'm glad we got his answer there. That was
Yeah.
obviously important, to try to get his answer.
I think he knows how to come back on.
Yeah.
When he does, hopefully, make sure you will read that letter.
We've had some really nice responses from people already as to what they would want the Bills to win it for, and if anybody else does want to submit one, we'd be happy to read them on the air at buffalojc3@gmail.com is my email. And if anybody is interested in sending in, a letter or a note as to what they, why they would want the Bills to win the Super Bowl, be happy to read it on the air. Luke, you with us?
Did you get me back?
I got you. So, Luke, I was gonna tell you, I opened up my email to anybody who might be willing to send me, what they would want the Bills to win the Super Bowl for. And honest to God, the first response I got, a girl named Jen, she wrote that she wanted the Bills to win the Super Bowl for Tim Russert.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that you hear that from time to time. Like you're right about how when you watch the Bills, it feels like your dad. I mean, I've lost both my parents, and just that feeling you have of familiarity and bond. And what would you do if they won? A, would you be here for the parade? And B, like, would you go honor your dad somehow? Like, what would you do to honor your dad and your grandfather and your uncle?
I'd have to think about that. I mean, I would definitely be at the parade, no doubt about it. Probably go to Arizona. I was at the last two in Pasadena and in Atlanta with my father, and my grandfather came for the one in Atlanta. So I'm 0 for 2. In the back of your mind,
I'm 0 for 4.
Don's 0 for 4 there.
Where I go, yeah. But that being said, probably, and then I'd have to think about that, whether it be a visit or some sort of party or something. But we got a lot of business before that. So
of course, absolutely. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on Sunday coming up here?
Well, it's a tough game. I mean, I think Cincinnati with their O-line down gives us an opportunity to pounce on them. I just think that Burrow is stone cold, and he's very effective, and he can carve up secondaries. And to me, I think when he's at his top, so if you take like Mahomes at their top level, Burrow at their top level, or Josh at their top level, Burrow, at least in my opinion, when they're playing their top flawless football, is probably the best of the three, just a little bit. I'm not going to be a total homer here. And that's what freaks me out, if he's in the zone, he can be almost unbeatable. All that being said, I think Baltimore showed that there are some vulnerabilities with the Bengals, especially on defense. You can wear them out. And if you look at what we've been able to accomplish over the last few weeks on this winning streak, it's not necessarily the most beautiful wins, but we come through and we figure out ways, whether it's getting a turnover in the secondary and or recovering a fumble, etc. So you got to like the Bills' chances at home, but I think this is a very, very tough out. And we don't know what type of emotional energy the Bengals are going to be bringing into it from the Damar Hamlin situation. Obviously, they were very respectful. They were very grateful. They were very kind. But these are professional athletes, and you have to think there's a little bit inside of them that's saying, hey, we would have won that game and things would have been different, and so let's go out and prove that. And that's an interesting thing to gauge, which we can't really fully do until the game is over, but that'll be a very powerful energy. So we really have to show up. We really have to show up.
Yeah, I think their challenge is knowing that they have to guard against what they know will be emotional energy here, especially,
Correct.
We don't know this, but we have heard there's a possibility that Damar Hamlin might be at the game in some shape or form. And, we saw what the roof come off the place the virtual roof after the opening kickoff. No one will ever forget that. This could be right up there with that.
Yeah, and that's a good point for both teams. Is how do they react to that? And it'll be such a release for sure. The other thing that I think will be interesting, especially from the Bills' point of view, is that fear we just talked about of like looking ahead. And I think Kansas City, they made that mistake last year after 13 seconds with Cincinnati, where they went in there and they went up early and everyone thought, okay, this game's over. But Cincinnati hangs around. They are a tough out. They're well coached. They have a ton of talent, and especially in the passing game. I mean, that's one thing that worries me. We really need to have good DB play. I was happy to see Elam make some real progress last week, and hopefully our linebackers in coverage with Milano and Edmonds really come to play too, because we'll need it.
Hey, speaking of Milano, you've been high on him, of course, from being
from day one,
the
man.
BC connection. So he got snubbed with the Pro Bowl, but then he comes back and he's first team All Pro. How about that?
Yeah, the Pro Bowl is such a joke now.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I really hope there's no more contract incentives tied to the Pro Bowl. It should be all pro, and it should be sort of statistical markers, because too many guys are getting screwed on that.
You had stock early on Milano Island.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Well, I watched him play in college. I mean, I loved watching him play at BC. He was a very effective linebacker at BC. He's always sort of tried to mold himself in that Luke Kuechly fashion, going back to BC. And he has a lot of the same attributes in terms of a nose for the ball, being really effective in coverage, and just flying around there. The contract that he signed with the Bills to come back, what a show of loyalty. Yeah. And I'm so happy he's getting his due and he's getting his attention in the league. He's a guy, honest to God, that had he played in a Dallas or a New York or an LA.
So I think unfortunately we lost him.
We know what he was going to say.
Yep.
That's a great point.
Let me ask you, Don. Contract incentive wise, first team All Pro. It's got to be a pretty big bonus
too. He's such a normal, minimalist kind of guy who just does his business and is well beloved by his teammates.
Yeah, he kind of reminds you of like a Shane Conlon type, like on the 90 team, right? Like the guy, like the glue of the defense, not flamboyant, not flashy, but makes almost every play. I was shocked when he missed that tackle on the 4th down play against Miami, because he just doesn't miss tackles. Like it was almost jarring that he missed on that open field. And I loved when he hit Skylar Thompson right on the edge of the sideline, but he wasn't out of bounds. It wasn't dirty, but man, he plays right to the sideline.
I thought it was at first.
Yeah.
But when you saw the replay, no, his feet were still in bounds.
That's a compliment to him. Don, what do you think the incentive is for first team All Pro?
Oh, it could be 500,000, could be 750, could be $1 million.
Wow, yeah. That's a big award, right, Luke?
It's not a bad day at the office, especially with the contract that he's on. And look, I think moving forward in just terms of marketability, I mean, that's a guy who should be getting some national looks for commercials, and especially pumped up there in Buffalo the way that Von Miller is. I mean, he really is an elite player. And you're right, he's not doing the most flashy things. But if we want to personify the ethos of Buffalo, I can think of no player that does that better than Matt Milano. Quiet, go about your work, dependable every single day, never complain, and just the epitome of strength and resilience. Great player.
Does he know that you were an early buyer?
Yeah,
on
we
Matt
communicated a little bit. And the guy who I know a little bit better on the team is another BC guy, Tommy Sweeney, who is a wonderful classic rock aficionado. Who's just great. I mean, Tommy Sweeney and we can talk Springsteen and whatnot, and he's a good guy. So the BC is well represented in Buffalo.
Yeah, you mentioned on your 2-minute warning last time you were here, you didn't hesitate to say Springsteen was your best concert ever. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. So do you have anything else, any other observations about the NFL or the playoffs or anything else before we let you go here?
I just think that these playoffs this year, especially in the AFC, if you look at the quarterbacks who are left, Burrow, Allen, Trevor Lawrence, Mahomes, and then you saw Herbert in the first round, and you would have seen Lamar had he not been hurt. That's really nice to see for the league. These are young guys that are going to have the league in good hands, at least for the next 5 years. I mean, there was a sort of dull period in the NFL when it was Brady and Manning, and then occasionally Breeze would get up there, and occasionally Russell Wilson would get up there, and then Roethlisberger was running around every now and then, and you had Aaron Rodgers, but it was stale. I mean, there was only a few guys who were really good, and they were kind of varying in age. Now you have guys who are the same age. I wish they weren't all in the same conference. I wish
Yeah,
they could send.
Right.
I wish we could send two of them over to the NFC to get some balance over there, but as a football fan, it's been nice to see this change. I think everybody was getting a little bit tired of the years of New England, the years of Indianapolis. My gosh, if Andrew Luck hadn't retired, they might still be there right now. So that's the first thing, just as a football fan. I'm eager to see that. Secondly, I think for Buffalo is that there is a path here, and if you take an optimistic point of view, and I think one thing we talked about this last time is that, look, as a lifelong Bills Mafia member, I'm just happy to be here. I think we forget about how bad that drought was. We forget about what we were trying to get in that drought, which was just little moral victories here and there, big wins. Never dreaming that the conference title was in our midst, never dreaming that consistent playoff appearances were in our midst, that we would win the division every single year with a real serious chance at the Super Bowl. So I always tell people, remember what it was like not that long ago. Go back 7 years.
Yeah.
It was not fun.
Yeah.
But I think if you take a very optimistic look at the Bills, is that their losses this year combined 8 points. 2 of those 3 losses, I would argue, were kind of fluky that happened on the last drive. The Miami game in Miami when it was 2,000 degrees, and Minnesota fumbling on the goal line. I'll give the Jets the win because they marched down 93 yards in the last minute and they ran it down our throats. They deserved to win that game. If you want to make another observation, maybe we got lucky in the Ravens game and didn't deserve that one, but that's the way the league goes, back and forth. So if you're looking at it objectively, there's one real loss, and that would be the Jets that was handed to us. And then you look at the Ravens, okay, we got lucky there. Minnesota got lucky against us, and the Dolphins got lucky against us with the weather. So it's not inconceivable to be undefeated. It's also not inconceivable to have one loss for the entire year.
Yeah.
And that's not playing their best, and that's playing without some starters in some real serious positions. So if you're being optimistic and you go, they have not played a very effective game, maybe since that Pittsburgh game where they balled out there, right?
Yeah.
Then you go, wow, if they can eliminate some of these sloppy mistakes, especially Josh, some of those interceptions, some of those fumbles, if they can figure out a way with the play calling to, all right, let's diversify this a little bit. Let's do a few screens. Let's do a few rollouts. Let's kill clock in game. Let's slow it down. Let's do more of these 8-9 minute drives that just demoralize the opponent. So, for example, if you're up on Miami, let's say 21-0, and you've killed clock because you've done these sort of these long sustained drives, feeding Cook, feeding Motor, feeding Knox, I think that's a real good formula. And if they do that, watch out. Yeah. Because right now what they do, and they're playing very well at the end of the day, right, is they go in there, they throw a few bombs, they show that this team that they can beat you at any moment, and that's scary as a defense, right? But if you do the long sustained knifing and you just start carving away, and carving out, which the Bills can do, and then you throw on the bombs, how do you beat them? And that's the one thing I hope they put together in these last few weeks, and they can. And and you're going to have to do that against Kansas City because you don't want Mahomes to have the ball. So that's the one thing I just hope to see is that those long sustained offensive drives, and just eliminate the sloppy mistakes.
Their A game is probably still the highest ceiling in the league. Like
correct.
They're, probably the last complete game they played was the Kansas City game on the road. Right before the bye. I felt like, they won that game, not handily, but they were in control of that game for most of the game. And they're like you said, Luke, their ceiling, their A+ game beats any of the 7 teams left in the playoffs. And that's what you want to see, right? Like if you're going to go out, you want to go out with your best game. And if somebody beats you or whatever, then so be it. Yeah. I saw a stat that you'll appreciate. I think every quarterback that was in the playoffs was under the age of 29 except for Brady.
Yeah.
Who is 106.
He's still that average.
So I think every other quarterback that started this weekend was under the age of 30, and then Brady's 45.
Yeah,
it's
it's
wild.
great. It's great for the league. It really is. And I'll be fascinated just in terms of if you look at Jacksonville and if Lawrence gets that going and gets that together. I mean, that could be really a powerhouse with Peterson. That's a team which is they kind of freak me out a little bit.
I love Doug Peterson. He doesn't care.
That's the thing.
He
Like,
doesn't
you
care.
think about the guy plays with house money. He has his players believing in him, right? And it's not crazy that they could upset Kansas City. I mean, no one's giving them a chance this week, right?
What's the spread?
And he can use that field. They have a great defense. And if Lawrence is not a guy hasn't played in big games. I mean, he was in 2 or 3 national titles in college. He was playing a playoff game every week in college, coming from Clemson, the ACC, where they could not afford to lose. They wanted to get in. So this guy's dealt with pressure before. And
no doubt.
I mean, the one thing I don't think any of us are prepared for is, let's say we beat Cincinnati, and let's say Jacksonville wins. You have Jacksonville at home. That kind of freaks me out a lot.
I was just when you were coming back into the chat room, I mentioned that. I'm like, the Jacksonville game being Saturday afternoon, they're 8.5-point underdogs, which is certainly a live dog. And Trevor, like you said, Trevor Lawrence is not going to be, the moment won't be too big for him. He's been in big games his whole life. If Jacksonville somehow pulls the upset there, that makes Sunday at 3:00. It makes me nervous even thinking about it, because just the idea of Jacksonville at home. Even though the KC game would be neutral site and it wouldn't be the looming, oh my God, we got to go back to Arrowhead again. But just like you said, Luke, the idea of Jacksonville at home makes my feet tingle. It's like, oh God. Now, would you think you'd go to Atlanta if they make it there?
I was thinking about that. I've been wanting to see that stadium. And part of you goes, all right, you go that, but then you want to keep your powder dry for the Super Bowl. But we got to get through this weekend. I guess I'll make those. Yeah, you got to see what the sort of situation is and how they schedule it and all that.
For sure.
For sure. But yeah, I think that'll be interesting if that ends up happening, because talk about 2 fan bases that would show out for that.
Gotcha.
And then I think a lot of the media would sort of try and cover it as the real Super Bowl, quote unquote, which they used to do back in the day when the Cowboys played the Niners and stuff like that.
Exactly. So we had, just before you came on, we had former Bills linebacker Kavika Mitchell.
Oh yeah.
And of course he won the Super Bowl with the Giants in the year that nobody gave them a chance.
2007,
beating the undefeated Patriots. But we kind of pressed him. He played for the Chiefs, Giants and Bills, who were obviously still in the mix, and we said, who is it that you feel has the inside track? And it was kind of a tortured answer. He didn't want to offend anybody, but we know he gave an honest answer, because when we asked him what his least favorite food was, or popular food that you hate, he said chicken wings. So we know he wasn't afraid to come on a Buffalo show and say that. So we get honest. So he kind of came out as saying he thought the Bill. Is that how you took it, Josh? The Bill said maybe the inside track.
Yeah, he liked their chances Sunday.
Yeah.
Which kind of surprised me. He was confident for them.
Yeah.
And I think he feels this is a special group, and Josh Allen will pull it out one way or another.
No, again, you think of team of destiny, it's cliche, but it really applies here. And then one thing to add to, Atlanta, if that were to happen, is that could you imagine a scenario where, they end up in Atlanta and the weather in Kansas City and Buffalo would have been awful. And I think, knock on wood, is our quarterback not undefeated in dome play? He has one loss, the one in Houston.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. And he always he balls out in those dome games.
What a dream! What a dream come true for the NFL.
I mean, the irony, of course, is here we are talking about resilient, tough Buffalo in the snow, and the inside track might be that our team, which in theory is kind of built for a dome a little bit, gets to the ability to play in a dome in the conference championship game against another outdoor team.
That's funny. That's great.
It's wild. It's wild.
Before we let you go, could you just tell us what you're working on and your book? You had mentioned it the first time, and
I got a book coming. Yeah, I got a book coming out May 2nd. It's a travel memoir. It's called "Look for Me There." and it's a real personal story about self-discovery and self-actualization that happened over the last few years. As I left NBC, I was there for about 8 years covering politics, following in the footsteps of my father, and came to a realization one day that I didn't really know why I was doing it. I was good at it, and I had achieved some decent accolades, and I was all set to go down the wonderful yellow brick road, but realized I wasn't necessarily passionate about it at that moment in time, and I had not processed a lot of things in my life as it pertained to my father, legacy and grief, and then also as it pertained to my mother, because when one parent passes away, your relationship with the other one changes demonstrably. So I ended up taking some time away, and it started as some travel, and it turned into a 3-year odyssey around the world to over 67 countries and 6 continents. And so I write about it, and I think it's a nice story. I hope you guys will have me on to talk about it.
Absolutely.
When it comes out.
Oh, no question.
And the Bills are mentioned there, and we talk about. You were talking about having wishes for the Bills and things like that. And, you go to some countries and different cultures, and they say there's few things you can do about leaving things for the energy and the spirit, etc., or churches or at mosques or synagogues in order to bring nice things upon you. Most all of mine were related to the Bills on that. So
you have little
stuck a lot
tokens.
of little good mementos around the world.
Where's the funniest place you
Oh
stuck
man, there's
There's a
I
teaser here.
I threw one in Nepal. I brought a Bills shirt with me when I flew by Mount Everest. I left some Bill stuff at this mountain in Japan. I left Bill stuff at salt flats of Bolivia. I've been in Africa, at Victoria Falls. So there's a lot of Bill stuff around the world that I've left, and let's hope it brings us some good juju.
You've got every religion covered, right?
Oh yeah. Yes. Buddhism, Hinduism, Islam, Judaism, Christianity. We got everything covered.
I love it. Hedging your bets. Can you just tell us real quick that story about meeting the guy? Was it in Amman, Jordan, and you were watching a Bills game?
Yeah. So it was the Thursday night, or it was Thanksgiving game against Dallas, and I went to go find a sports bar in Amman, Jordan. Now Amman, they're more laid back there, so you can find beer in Amman. You can't find that anywhere in the Middle East, but you could find it in Amman. And they had a sort of knockoff version of Buffalo Wild Wings, which was funny. And I went to this bar on Thanksgiving night to watch the Bills Cowboys, and you want to talk about I felt like my entire family was there just by having the wings come out, and they were actually a pretty good wing, and they had the Middle Eastern spices and the buffalo sauce, which gave it a kick. I think someone in Buffalo should try that. There's some interesting things you can make up. But I ended up sitting there and just met all these Bills fans, which was absolutely crazy, in Amman, Jordan on Thanksgiving night, and had wonderful conversations with them. Some of them were expats that were in Jordan for business or whatnot. And then there were some local Jordanians who would grow up watching the NFL. And the way that happened back then was they would show sort of taped replays of games that happened at obscure hours. And some guys just got into it and said, "Oh yeah, I used to watch, Thurman Thomas and Jim Kelly when I was a kid because it would come on at early in the morning at like 5 a.m. before my parents woke up, and I would just watch it on TV." It's like,
That's
okay,
crazy.
it is crazy. And in that part of the world, they have one of the things I always laugh about is we're so gung ho about our streaming and our NFL Sunday ticket in America. It's like you can walk into a very small, modest shack in the middle of the Jordanian desert, and some guy will have a satellite that gets like every channel in the world. Like you can watch like local Buffalo TV. And so
Wow.
I just I sit here in America. I'm like, man, we really have a lot of red tape over everything.
Yeah, the three of us can't figure out this damn podcast, right?
And we can't. You can't watch your MLB regional baseball team if you're in the wrong state at the wrong time. But oh my gosh, you're in the middle of Amman, Jordan. You can watch whatever the hell you want.
That's amazing.
So,
yeah. We'd love to have you back, and
absolutely,
God
guys.
willing, if they do make the Super Bowl, and you want to pop on during that week, yeah, absolutely. Thanks a lot.
Take care. Visit on to Cincinnati. Take it easy.
All right, take care.
Bye-bye.
That's awesome. Can't wait for that book.
Yeah, that's
going to
be a lot of fun. We'll definitely have him on.
Oh, yeah.
When that comes out. And
outstanding.
yeah, and my wife, just before we leave here, Jody got me a large poster of the Four Falls of Buffalo, which he was an executive producer on.
Yeah, that's right. He talked a lot about that in the first time he was on.
So, and I've already planned that if that day comes and they do, end up winning, I think that's required viewing, because I think it'll hit differently if they win, to then go back and watch that again.
Any reservations you had, like you,
right. Well,
they're gone.
So the only thing I can compare it to is I went back after the Red Sox won in 2004. I went back and I watched the entirety of Game 6 in 1986, the Bill Buckner game. The first time I had watched it at all, because it was completely intolerable, and I could never watch that until they won. Once they won, I could watch it. And now, have you ever watched any of the 4 Super Bowls?
Not the games. I mean, as you know, we're talking about this. I have home movies.
Yep.
When I took in Super Bowl 28 pregame and the party the night before, I was one of the few people that had them there. But I didn't watch. I haven't watched the games. No.
Yeah, we're gonna share some of those home movies that you have, over the next couple of days on Twitter.
Never been seen.
They're
beyond,
great.
Yeah.
They're great. And one of them was the team photo, right? Like on the field,
taking of the team photo
in the Georgia Dome.
Scott Berchtold and Denny Lynch getting the team together. You're going to stand here, Mr. Wilson, Marv.
Were you in the photo?
I was. I think I have it.
You were top row.
I was not featured,
okay,
but I was in there.
I was. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, and that was the Georgia Dome, and ironically, that was new. Right when you were there, and it's gone.
Yeah,
they've already gone. They've already gone through an entire stadium from the time the Bills were there the last time in the Super Bowl.
That's
because
crazy.
The Olympics were in '92.
Yeah,
so the Georgia Dome had just opened.
I'm hearing that about KeyBank Center and all. Hey, we need to do arena.
Oh well, have you been to KeyBank Center in a while? It's rough.
96. It felt new. My time just flies.
Yeah. Well, speaking of time flying, we've had a great time on this episode. We're gonna be back live, a couple times this week. We're not quite sure when. The times we'll release them on Twitter and on the Cover One YouTube channel.
Yeah, and look forward episode. Folks that are buying tickets, it's as easy now as click, boom, boom. Here we go. Wherever it is. That's how I got my start in the NFL. Was working as an intern in the ticket office, and then 4 years. And some of my former friends and colleagues have agreed to come on and talk about what it was like to try to sell out a game. Folks, we're talking books and hard tickets. They couldn't be replaced. It took days. It was a really heavy lift. You had to really like the people you work with, because you spent many, many hours, and I did. But they've got some really funny stories that we're going to talk about later in the week too. Amongst other things, we've got some other fun guests coming up.
Yeah,
too.
Absolutely. All right, we'll talk to everybody
All
soon.
right,
Thanks.
Bills.
Go Bills.